We're having me search it up.
Oh, yeah, because I'm not good enough.
No, I just have a system that's fast.
I like looking for ours. Leave me alone. Not nice.
I found this already.
Shut up. That in here. Hey, Peanut. What kind of like
If you
this
want to
one?
see what he looks like, you can look it up right now. Hi, Angela.
What up,
See
Angela?
that photo of him?
Yeah.
That's him.
Why does he look like a movie star?
You know what? That's what a lot of people said.
He does. He looks like a movie star, but I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, he was one of those people that a lot of people viewed as attractive. And people like straight up were like, oh, he's so cute. It's kind of like when Ted Bundy was on trial, how all those women would follow him around because they're like, oh my gosh, he's so hot. Which, by the way, that is an actual thing. There are women who are.
Oh, I know.
I actually read a fun study about this.
They even marry them while they're in prison because
Oh,
they're.
but I read this actually really fun study.
Hmm.
So this fun study was actually done that determined because women, like, oftentimes in media, they fall for the villain, they fall for the bad guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to see if women who fall for the bad guy
Mm-hmm.
are the same as women who fall for serial killers in real life. They wanted to see if maybe the same ideas are behind them, the same like thought patterns, but it expresses it differently.
Harley Quinn.
Well, here's the thing. They found that women who fell for fictional serial killers and stuff like that, they
Like more
were
likely prone to fall for real ones.
no,
Oh.
that they just wanted to feel protected and loved in a greater capacity. It was more like it's weird to say, but it was more like they had more empathy, but they felt fictional people would keep them safe. Now, women who fell for serial killers tested completely the opposite. Women who fell for actual serial killers in their studies
Mhm.
found that they actually wanted to become serial killers, but they knew socially they couldn't become serial killers, so they just were attracted to serial killers. So there is a great deal of difference in women who find fictional villains attractive than those who find actual horrible people attractive.
Psych eval, room 101, please. Psych eval, room 101.
What? It's like the feeling.
Scratch that. It's now 101 and 102.
Well, okay, so have you ever heard this statement that women would rather, in the fictional universes, they would rather fall for a villain than like a good guy because a villain would burn the world for you, but a good guy would let the world burn, would save the world and lose you because they're so good they would think about the greater good. Meanwhile, the villain would go, "Oh, I have to keep you safe. You're my one thing."
Superman, room 105. I put the key under the mat. That's
Hello, Thomas.
wow.
Yeah, no. So women who are attracted to actual serial killers, they found actually want to become a serial killer, but they know it's socially unacceptable.
You think?
Yeah, so they don't. So they just fall for serial killers.
Oh, something wrong with you.
I just thought that was a wild study.
That's beyond wild.
It's an interesting study. Tell me I'm wrong.
Is she wrong? I'm asking Justin.
He's gonna say yes.
Okay. No, he won't say yes.
But tell me how I'm wrong. That's not a little bit interesting. That all those women who found.
I don't want to know what you're thinking. I'll tell you, not you particular,
But
not
yeah,
you.
yeah.
The women are thinking,
But
what?
like the women who were chasing Ted
Ouch.
Bundy knew who he was. That were like, oh, it would also explain the Manson girls.
I think they were all just high with Manson.
I feel like no matter how high
There's
you
probably
are,
more to
I
it.
feel like no matter how high you are to have that level of brutality for the Manson murders,
Come on, Twix
you
face.
kind of have to have that desire.
Willow.
So actually, I'm Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But not actual ones. Actual ones we want to avoid because they're monsters.
Manson girls were cult girls and high. See, I told you they were high.
Yeah, they were high, but in
They
my
lost their minds. Yeah.
brain, I cannot understand how someone who is high can have the level of brutality without having a little bit of that idea of wanting to commit a murder. Like they may be cult girls, but they kind of have to have some sort of thing in them that is like,
If every
yeah,
time you do this for me, we'll get conjugal visits.
maybe, maybe. But I will.
God.
So I'm gonna tell you,
Which
Gordon.
if you do that stuff on the outside where they go in, he tells them what needs to happen. They pass it on to someone else. Dude, it adds more time for you, you idiot. And then it makes them an accessory. Morons.
They don't care. They thought they wanted to start a race war.
I love him.
They wanted to start a race war.
I love you,
Manson was a
What do
racist.
you want me to do for you? Oh, they were that way.
Yeah, they were
Sober.
mentally messed up.
They were yeah. You gotta be if you're gonna do a Manson.
Yeah, but I saw there was also another cult. There's a running joke that during a certain period of times LA became the cult headquarters
I'm not
because a
surprised.
bunch of cults moved to LA because it was so popular, they felt they could get more people.
Yeah.
Also, if you think about it, a bunch of narcissists are usually cult leaders, and narcissists know those who are weak and vulnerable are the best ones to get to your cult, join your cults.
Mm.
There was this one dude I just learned about him where he was like straight up, it was just racism. His cult was all about racism. And I was like, bro,
Right?
what?
I'm obsessed with cults.
I know, cults are amazing. From a religious stand view, because I remember getting into a debate in one of my classes. What is the difference between a religion and a cult?
Ooh,
That's exactly it. Nobody really knows. Even in the study of religious study, exactly. Even in the study of religious studies, people are like, what is the difference between a religion and a cult?
Yeah.
And the only thing that they can determine right now, and what theorists can determine, is time.
Mm.
Time is the only difference.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah. But we're going to talk about a man. A man
When do we not?
today. One of these days I'd like to, talk about a female serial killer, which we will be with Fred and Rose West.
But that's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And it is going to be a two-parter.
No, it's 3 weeks. Right? Not counting this week? 2
Not
weeks?
counting this week, it's 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
But Rose, I used to be like, oh, Rose is such a sweet name. It wouldn't like I like people
Cults
named
are a religion.
Yeah, cults are a religion.
Mm.
Like I love the name Rose. Rose is such a sweet name. Not anymore. I can't stand people named Rose. Because of this person. Straight up. So this is gonna be a gruesome one. Like I mean gruesome.
Viewer discretion advised.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk a little bit about history and everything that's happened during this time period. So Gordon Cummins, the Blackout Ripper, was he killed during World War II.
Yeah. No roses. There was space on that door.
Yeah. There was space on the door. But yeah, no. He was named after he was a Ripper. He was called Ripper after Jack the Ripper because of how brutal he was.
How brutal he was or Jack was?
So Jack the Ripper got the title of Ripper because of how brutal he was.
Right.
He got the title of Ripper as well because technically they viewed him as more brutal than Jack.
Oh dang.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Jack this fall.
Yeah. Like he was awful. He was gruesome and gory, and actually not a lot of people know about him.
I never heard about him.
Yeah, exactly.
I only know about Jack the Ripper.
And I hate to say this, he was the perfect predator.
Oh, okay.
He was a good predator. I will say a big difference between him and Jack was that Jack seemed to have it planned out. He knew when to kill and where the best place to kill was so we could have a little bit of quiet. This guy, Not so much. He was opportunistic and just by flying by with no planning, but he was deserving of the title of Ripper because all of his victims were alive when he tortured them. Whereas, you know how Jack kind of did like the throat slash thing and then everything he did after was post mortem?
Yeah.
So they were already dead?
Yeah.
This dude did everything while his victims were still alive. And it's going to get graphic. And I am going to have to show you a picture because I will let you know this. Tin can openers looked different in the 1930s than they do now. So I'm going to show you a photo of a can opener. And you're going to understand why.
Forgot about our little noise.
So it is the 1930s through the 1940s during World War II.
Mhm.
So they're also suffering the effects of the Great Depression because the Great Depression wasn't in the United States only, it was all over the world. So everyone's pretty poor.
Right.
And women in particular are doing whatever they can to make money to keep a roof over their head and food on their plate and doing just some extra work to keep some money. So everyone was struggling. And then when Hitler attacked Poland, most countries knew they were going to be next or they would have to pick a side. So the Great Depression is happening. Hitler invades Poland on September 1st. I will always love the fact that Hitler invaded Poland on September 1st, which is my birthday.
All right, enjoy.
World War II started. So the British government sent about 1.5 million British citizens to the countryside. These were women, children, elderly, disabled, anyone who would not be safe on their own in the urban areas. This ended up actually being really traumatic because many of these people were forced to live with strangers, and so they also didn't know what was happening to the people who they left behind. So the men who they left behind, their husbands, their sons, many of them didn't know what was happening in there.
Okay.
So they were kind of traumatized from it. Damn, this is why I don't like tablets. They die.
You can set it to where it'll constantly be
No.
on. Okay, fine.
I
tried to help.
So hence why children were set to the farmland. So like Narnia, how the 4 kids went to go live with someone.
Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, how they went to go live with like their uncle in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
That was why.
Oh, they just didn't have a wardrobe.
Yeah. A couple of months after everyone evacuated and the bombing started, people didn't know how long those bombings were going to last. So a good majority decided to just go home and deal with it. They were like, if I'm going to go and if I'm going to die, I would rather die with everyone I know.
Yeah.
So there was a blackout issued also after Hitler invaded Poland. And it was so every night, all lights needed to go out. No lamps, no fire, nothing, because they did not want to notify them where the major urban cities were and where urban people were. So that's like if Tucson, no lights at all. No lights inside your house, no fires outside, nothing, just complete and utter darkness.
Like our life.
Yes, like our life. But can
Kidding.
you imagine that kind of darkness though?
No.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
Yeah. So they were intentional blackouts to make sure that Germans couldn't identify the cities and urban areas. If you were caught breaking
the candles.
if you lit candles inside your house, you had to have blackout curtains in your windows.
Oh, makes sense.
There were heavy fines that came with it because not only were you, like, so let's say somebody there was even fines for lighting a match.
5 cents.
No, like they would
Wow.
be like £5 for it was heavy fines. Because let's say somebody lit a fire real quick, right? And they didn't close their blackout curtains and a German plane is flying over, they see a flash of light. They know there's people there. What is the German plane going to do?
Crash it.
They're going
Bomb
to
it.
they're going to bomb it. And guess what the bombing is going to do? It's not just going to kill you, it's going to kill everyone around you. Yes. People
like
were
your boss.
not safe. So the first of the month alone that they issued these blackouts, traffic deaths doubled.
Oh wow.
Because people were driving at night in the pitch darkness.
But you can't use headlights.
Yeah. Hence why the traffic deaths doubled.
Oh my God.
In January of 1942, 1 in 5 people suffered some sort of injury due to the blackouts. The chaos led to the question, what do we do to the prisoners? Because they're essentially just sitting targets. So the government then initiated a system that said if a prisoner had 3 months left on their sentence, they were free to go. And if any boys had served 6 months, they were also free to go.
Oh, okay.
The result was a massive increase in crimes, and civilian volunteers were one of the biggest help to police because they were doing a lot of work and making it easier for an already busy police force. Petty criminals realized the uniform of these civilian volunteers gave power, and the uniform was a helmet and an armband. So criminals realized that
That's all
these
you get.
things had power, so they would steal them and then commit crimes while wearing them.
Oh my
But
God.
but they wouldn't do it outright. They would be like, "Look over there," and then proceed to commit a crime.
Sorry. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wow.
World War II, y'all. The 1940s.
And what
Um,
was that?
the police and civilians had to make decisions if a crime was worth prosecuting. So, an example is stealing food counts as thefts, but during this time, it was up to an officer or civilian to bring charges. So, let's say you went in and you stole a piece of bread. Am I gonna prosecute you for stealing that bread, or am I just gonna let you go for stealing the bread? And most of the time, they would let them go.
Yeah.
But then that creates a slippery slope.
Yeah.
So that led to a lot of gray area. So in the 1940s, there was a lot of gray in England. So looting and shoplifting were so common that the courthouses would set 2 days a week just to hear cases of those crimes.
Jeez.
Yeah. Shop owners were also price gouging, and doctors would gladly take money to say someone couldn't serve. Yeah. They took bribes. They price gouged. So
Wow.
hence why police also weren't likely to get you in trouble for stealing.
I just heard it on the TV. Sorry.
Or like the police weren't likely to get you in trouble for stealing because
Yeah.
they knew that the storekeepers were price gouging.
Mm.
So they were like, you know what, this bread was 1 pound and now they're charging 10 pounds. Do what you got to do. So everyone was leaning more towards criminality. That's just was the case. Everyone seemed to be leaning towards it. And crimes were ignored. And one of them was sex work. And that was because it was less important. Um, some said that women were offering a necessary service to service members at the time.
Oh, jeez.
They argued that, you know what? They're probably going to die out in war. Might as well let them have a good time before they go die.
I don't know how to do the whistle on this one. Hold on.
Yeah. So basically, sex work was one of those things where they were like, it's at this point a necessary evil. We're not going to prosecute them. So sex work flourished. And remember how I said everyone was pretty poor?
Yeah.
Sex work was a great way to make money.
Oh, nice.
But murder
So that's
was,
another
yeah,
chicken.
murder was inevitable. Within 2 weeks of the nightly blackouts, the first murder happened on September 15th of 1939. Yes.
You're gonna get so tired of this box. It
It,
makes
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Oh my god. So,
Oh, it's so good. We need another one of these, but with different sounds.
so in September 15th in Edinburgh, 52-year-old Isabella Ralph had no fixed address and did make her living sometimes by doing sex work. The news reported on the case and gave few details, but ultimately it was a small blurb with the bombings and all of the other stuff. It wasn't really important.
I think she stepped on
She
the
stepped
remote.
on the remote.
Hit cancel.
Why are you stepping on remotes?
She's gonna reach over, grab it from you, and chuck it across her pillow. You gotta
Maybe.
get it first. Down the shirt it goes.
So basically, Isabella Ralph was homeless,
Oh,
and she did sex work to make some money.
that's so sad.
And when the news reported on it, they only gave it. It was a small blip. Nobody really talked about it because the bombings were happening.
Yeah.
The war was breaking out. The depression during the. It was just a small blurb because it wasn't important at the time, and that's actually really common. during this case,
Mhm.
these victims also only got a small blurb.
Mm.
So when people wouldn't read about it, they didn't know it was happening until it was way too late.
Yeah.
So, then, a few days later, the killer is actually caught. John Henry Connell was a 24-year-old bricklayer that lived in Edinburgh. Connell said he took a room at a boarding house, and when he woke up, money that he had was missing. So he went to go find Isabella, who he had relations with the night before. So he paid her for sex. Yeah. Um, and when he woke up, money had been missing. So he went to go find Isabella. And he went and retrieved his money. And then he said things got physical, and he claimed he grabbed her by her throat to keep her from screaming, and he accidentally killed her. Now I'm going to list you some statistics that probably got me put on an FBI watch list because I Googled how long does it take to strangle somebody.
I'm not gonna do a hand clap. Nope.
Yeah.
Wow.
So here's a little bit tidbit of knowledge. Um, if you strangle someone 7 to 10 seconds, that will ultimately typically leads to unconsciousness.
Right. Okay.
Right? You strangle someone to 15 seconds, it could lead to a stroke.
Oh.
You strangle somebody from 1 to 30 seconds, you could suffer a cardiac arrest.
Oh wow.
And then ultimately to cause death, 4 to 5 minutes of strangulation.
Jeez.
So, it takes a long time to kill someone by strangulation. So there is no way that this man just grabbed her by her throat to keep her quiet. Because you also, when you're strangling, you can't just strangle and then release the pressure. Because if you release the pressure, then you have to start those 4 or 5 minutes has to start all
Oh
over
wow.
again. So he couldn't just accidentally kill her.
Dumbass.
He had to actually put in the effort.
Wow.
The defense said he didn't mean to kill her, even though they found that Isabella had broken ribs.
Ow. Okay.
So it was a brutal death. He either had kicked her or he had done something to break her ribs.
Yeah.
The judges sided with the defense and sentenced him to 3 years of penal servitude. The murder of Isabella says a lot about the news and the justice system. In regards to the news, page space was limited, so they had to choose what they talked about. And when it came to low income people, they didn't care. The war took priority. The justice system had lesser bandwidth, so they tried to get things out of the system faster.
Mm.
The reason that this case is important is because the Blackout Ripper was not reported on and not really talked about. So it essentially was tossed aside.
Wow.
So it's been a couple years since 1939. It is now the winter of 1942, and the war had been going on for about a year. Londoners were used to the violence because it was all around them. But this would start making the toughest Londoner throw up.
Mm.
The first victim was discovered by plumbers William Baldwin and Harold Batchelder, who were on their way to work on February 9th, 1942. They were walking to work in the morning and passed through Montague Place and Maryley Bone.
Mm-hmm.
They noticed a broken flashlight on the snowy ground near a group of handmade air raid shelters. So these air raid shelters look like a tin half sphere that had a little opening that you could scoot in out
Yeah.
of. Next to it, they found a green wool turban styled hat and some matches and some Ovaltine tablets. As they got closer, they saw what looked like a pale leg sticking out of the shelter, and they originally thought that the leg belonged to a mannequin. That's how pale the leg was.
Jeez.
They're like, oh, that's a mannequin leg. But Herod Batchelder ran to the nearest phone to call the police, and the reason they cited that they called the police was because they thought it was not because they thought it was a body,
Mm.
but because it had so much stuff that a woman would have on her that they went, that's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
We should call this in.
Yeah. I mean.
So when PC John Miles went, they discovered it was a human body. Miles knew it was not an accidental death, and he called for more officers and they blocked off the area and set up the crime scene. The police officer could already tell the victim had been brutalized by her attacker, just at first sight. The police said her face and neck were badly bruised and her clothes were torn. Her skirt had been pulled up to her thighs and she had been violently sexually assaulted. The following day, the pathologist, Sir Bernard Spilsbury, I love the English names. I know we're talking about something gruesome, but I love
I know.
Spilsbury.
That makes me want to name
Sir Bernard Spilsbury.
my next animal that.
He's also a really good guy,
Okay.
and he comes up a lot in this case.
Okay.
So
Spilsbury.
he concluded that aside from the bruising on the face and neck, there was a lot of small abrasions to her upper,
Mm-hmm.
including a lot of small abrasions on her exposed right breast.
Mm.
The cause of death was manual strangulation. She was the least brutalized of all of his victims. And at the scene, there was no forensic evidence. Her body was left in the doorway with her legs wide open, which the police thought was a deliberate pose to humiliate her corpse even more.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Um, Later that day, PC Miles found her purse a little bit away, and someone had gone through it and took money and valuables and her ID card.
Oh, nice.
The blood at the scene was hers.
Well, her identity.
Yeah. But the bruising on her neck and the fingerprints left behind showed that the killer was left-handed. So
Mm.
they were able to identify that the killer was left-handed based off the strangulation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A few days later, she was ID'd as Evelyn Hamilton, a 41-year-old pharmacist from Essex.
Mm.
The outbreak of the war caused the pharmacy to go under where she worked, so she was walking to Grimsby because she was starting a new job as a pharmacist there.
Right. Okay.
Hamilton had been staying at a woman's boarding house and she had been seen eating and drinking the night before the murder. The people who saw her couldn't remember if she was with someone or if she was alone, which would help identify
Yeah.
if she was enticed to the crime scene or if it was more opportunistic.
Yeah.
The detectives had just started looking at the Hamilton murder when they were told they had discovered a similar murder on February 10th. Now, this was discovered on what day? February 9th. So the next day,
Mm.
on February 10th, that morning, 2 meter readers were doing the rounds, going from rooming house to rooming house on Wardner Street in Soho in London, and they knocked on the door of Evelyn Oatley.
Okay.
They knocked on her door with no reply. The manager's like, "Nah, she's home. I haven't seen her leave. She's still there."
Okay.
He's like, "Have you tried the door?" And the meters were like, meter readers are like, "We're not allowed to just walk into people's houses."
Yeah.
And the manager jiggled the door and it was actually unlocked. So he opened it and he yelled inside, trying to see if he could get a response. Because the manager knew her, so he's like, "Hey, anyone there?
Yeah.
Evelyn, you there? Come on out." I'm actually gonna not say this next part because Justin's in the room and this is gonna give Justin nightmares.
Oh, wait.
So we're gonna wait because I'm gonna let you know this is when you start seeing the actual brutality of this killer.
Mm.
They went inside and they found Evelyn face up in her bed. And they later said that they believe she had a red scarf around her neck. Right? That was not a red scarf. It's just that her neck had been violently slashed open.
Oh, shit.
The men ran into the street looking for a police officer and they came back with Inspector John Hennessy. Later that day, Hennessy reported what he saw. And I'm letting you know this is going to be gruesome.
Okay.
I flashed my torch and saw a woman believed to be Evelyn Oatley on her back on a divan or a single bed. Divan is like one of those like couches, those like fancy couches that you always saw like people like in the movies.
Titanic.
Exactly.
Okay.
In a transverse position. Her head was pointing north and was hanging down over the side of the bed. So her head was
literally hanging there.
yeah.
Jeez.
She was naked except for a slender garment which covered her breast. I saw that her throat had been cut and a hand torch was wedged in her private parts.
We're never buying a hand torch.
Uh, a
Wow.
tin can opener was laying near the torch, and her legs were wide apart.
Few
Now,
household items I don't need.
I'm going to show you what a tin can opener in the 1930s looks like, so you can understand.
Don't really want to understand because
It's important you know, because you just think like one of those normal tin can openers in the 1930s. No, this is what a tin can opener.
oh,
You want to
okay,
show the camera?
not really.
Either way, if you can kind of see that, that's what a tin can opener looked like in the 1930s. So it was pretty sharp.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're good.
yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you were further down. I think it scrolled up some.
yeah. So additional police arrived at the scene and were shocked at the brutality of the murder. Superintendent Fred Sherrill said she was a ghastly sight. She had been the victim of a sadistic attack of the most horrible and revolting kind.
Well, yeah. I mean, that right there and the torch. Okay.
Fred Sherrill was a fingerprint expert, and he was the one to determine that it was a left-handed killer. And he even ran it against known perps. So he was like, he had the thought. He was like, you know what? I bet you whoever's done this has done it in the past. So I'm going to run it against
Of
people
course.
who's done it. This is in the 40s though, so sometimes you question like their knowledge. The fact he did that.
Okay, hold on.
So those things I listed that were found,
Okay.
near
Sorry.
her
Yeah.
were not the only things used on her.
Wow.
A razor blade. So I'm going to list the things that were used on Evelyn. A razor blade, the can opener,
Yeah.
parts of a broken mirror,
Jesus.
a flashlight, and curling tongs.
Jesus.
All of these things that were used on her was used on her while she was still alive.
What the frick, man?
Um, like the Hamilton case, there was little evidence, and there was no known person who would want to hurt Evelyn. She was married but was living apart from her husband, and some of the time, while she pursued an acting career in London, according to her husband, she was fascinated with West End life and she wouldn't leave it.
Mm.
She worked at the nightclub for a little bit, but since her husband had been away and had been working far away from her, she had been working full time as a sex worker. The last time she was seen was when she was with a dark haired airman the night before.
Yeah.
The airman had approached her friends. Um, wait, ah, I typed in the wrong thing. So, she had turned to full time for sex work.
Mhm.
Her friends had turned to sex work for income, but also she was scared of sleeping alone during the blackouts.
Mm.
So
Makes
she was
sense.
scared to sleep alone, so she turned to sex work
Had
would
somebody, a companion.
she would have a companion to sleep with at night. The last time she was seen with a dark-haired airman the night before. The airman had approached her, um, and that's all they really know. The medical examiner said she had been beaten and strangled to unconsciousness and then suffered extensive sexual mutilation inflicted by the killer using a safety razor, curling tongs, a corner fragment of a broken mirror, and the tin can opener. This didn't kill her, though.
It was
Yeah, the
the
final
slashing of the
wound
surgery.
was the 5-inch wound on her neck that slashed her carotid artery.
Oh wow.
There was another incision. It was a 2-inch incision made by a razor.
Hmm.
The evidence on the evidence that was found were a couple of fingerprints.
Hmm.
They were also found on the piece of glass, and it also indicated a left-handed killer. So much like Hamilton.
Yeah.
Um, it's important to note none of these things were brought. He used what was found in the
He went through
house.
her house.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's worse is that a neighbor told police afterwards that a little after midnight, they heard the radio suddenly turn up so loudly they could hear it through the wall.
Wow.
And the police realized that this happened
That's
because
what.
he was trying to drown out her screams.
Mm.
On February 12th, and this was the previous kill was on February 10th. On February 12th, a sex worker named Catherine McKay nearly died, and she said that a very nice, clean cut man approached her and she agreed to work with him. When they got to her apartment and things were happening, he got on top of her and attacked her immediately.
Oh wow.
He put both of his knees on her abdomen and tried to strangle her manually.
Mm-hmm.
But she fought back. She wasn't going to take that. Apparently, she still had her boots on, and she
Ooh.
kept kicking him, and she kicked him as hard as she could off of her, and she ran out of her house to her neighbors with none of her clothes on.
I'm gonna applaud that. Wait a
Um,
minute. Good for her.
so she ran naked to her neighbor's house, banging on the doors,
She
asking her to let.
escaped.
He ran after her and threw money at her, saying he was drunk and didn't mean to do it, and he ran away.
Uh-huh.
But he left something behind:
Personality.
a Royal Air Force belt.
Ooh, that's another check mark on
Yeah.
the evidence.
He went on and killed again after this failure, but this victim would not be discovered until, oh, yeah, would not be discovered until February 13th.
Jeez.
I'm
So
going to
one
go in
happened.
order of how they were discovered, so there's going to be a little bit of jumping in time.
So there was one on the 9th, one on the 10th, one on the one on
One
the
attack
12th.
on the,
I'm sorry. So the 9th, 10th, 12th, which didn't happen.
he escaped.
She escaped,
And then
and then the
they
13th.
found another victim that was most likely killed on the 12th,
Mm,
but wasn't discovered until the 13th.
mm.
Um, the fourth victim was found before the third, so just
Okay.
a little bit of a heads up. Wait, no, the third victim was found before the fourth because the fourth one was like the last one.
Okay.
Um, so he would go only hours between kills
Okay.
or attacks. He would go only hours between some of them.
Oh
Some
wow.
of them he would wait a long time, and some of them it would be like
Yep.
literally
Yep. Do
just
it
a
right
couple of
now.
hours. Yeah. So police were still investigating Oatley's crime scene when
Mm,
another body was found. On the afternoon of February 13th, 15-year-old Barbara Lowe went
mm.
to visit her mom, Margaret. She knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Now, Barbara asked her neighbor if they had seen her mom, and the neighbor was like, I haven't seen her for a couple of days. And there was a package that had been on her front door also for a couple of days.
Yeah.
So Barbara called the police to check in and see what was happening because she was like, that's not like my mom. My mom would
Yeah.
call and tell me if she was going out of town, if anything
Sometimes
like
that's
that.
a good thing about if it's a small town that your people,
Yeah.
like where we live
Yeah.
in our little neighborhood that we live in. We know who and what vehicles are here, and we know
Yeah.
what people are here. So
It's kind of like,
it's kind of good to know that your neighbors are a little bit nosy, because
yeah, it's like the manager was like, "No, she's here. I know she's here. I
yeah,
haven't seen her leave." And then
yeah.
when they knocked on the door, they discovered something gruesome.
So it's actually a little good that your neighbors are a
A
little
little
bit
nosy. It's
nosy,
always nice.
because then they can always help
There
out.
have been cases though, there have been like your nosy neighbor and you didn't call the police. Like they hear someone screaming, "Help me! He's killing me!" And the neighbors are like, "I'm gonna go back to sleep."
That's somebody's TV.
No, this was like in the
No,
20s
I know.
when there's no
Oh, no
friggin'
TV.
no TV. They
No,
just heard that and went, "I'm gonna go back to bed."
somebody's playing a game.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So an officer used a spare key to get inside. DS Leonard Backtop was surprised that the blackout curtains were still drawn.
Wait. He had a key?
They found a spare key. The manager
Oh,
had like a
okay.
spare key. And so he was really surprised because the blackout curtains were still drawn. And he was like, "Are you sure she's still here? She couldn't have left or something." And Barbara's like, "No, that's not who she is. I know my mom."
Yeah.
So he switched on his flashlight and he looked around. And when he got to the
It was the
kitchen,
radio. You are correct. I
yeah,
forgot.
uh, he's when he got to the kitchen, he saw a woman's purse laying on the floor,
Uh-huh.
and everything in the purse was all
All
over
over
the
the floor.
floor. So he reached the last door, which was Margaret's bedroom door, and it was locked. but
Mm,
Barbara gave permission to force the door open so they could get inside. After he forced the door open, he stopped Barbara from coming in
no,
because it was a gruesome scene.
poor girl. She didn't need to be seeing that,
Yeah.
especially at the age of 15.
Margaret's
Mm-mm.
low body was on the bed, complete. And what's even sadder is the reason her mom, because her mom had turned to sex work.
Mm.
Her mom was doing sex work to make sure her daughter could stay in a boarding school
Aw,
because her husband had passed away, so she couldn't provide any more income. So
yeah.
she was like, "This is a great way for me to make sure my daughter
She
gets
can
a better
stay
life."
in a better school in her
Yeah,
life. Well, kudos to mom, but it sucks that this happened to her.
yeah. Margaret Slowe's body was on the bed again, completely nude,
Uh-huh.
and it had been there a day or two. Her face and head was brutally beaten, and beaten with what the detective thought was the fireplace poker that had actually been broken into two pieces that was laying next to her on the floor.
Oh, wow.
You know, the steel ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. Broken
Jesus.
in two. Um, the autopsy discovered her jaw had been shattered by the blows.
Ouch. So even
One,
if she tried to scream, she wouldn't be able
yeah. One of her
to.
stockings had been tied tightly and knotted, and it had actually dug into her skin, and her body had been badly mutilated.
Oof.
With, among other things, a razor,
Mm-hmm.
I am sorry, everyone, a potato peeler, a table knife, and there was a large serrated bread knife protruding from a wound near her groin, and a wax candle had been inserted into her private part.
Jesus.
Yeah, the potato peeler bothers me the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
That takes a certain kind of sadism. Like, I mean, he's sadistic. Like, and we can see that from the previous victims. He is
Mm.
sadistic, but this,
But to go that far,
but this is like a whole other
potato
layer
peeler
of
and then a bread
sadism.
knife.
Yeah, and the fact that she was alive when this occurred too. Like, it's
Poor
not like,
woman.
and I know it's bad to say, like Jack the Ripper, when he did his kills, when he was like doing the whole like cutting open the body and going through the organs, they were already dead. So they kind of were already peacefully gone. They were no longer
Yeah,
attached to their
this poor
body.
woman was not. Dude was
Well, we're
going
actually
for
gonna
things.
get to that.
Oh
We're
shit.
actually gonna get to that. Um Fingerprints were found in the apartment, and again they had discovered it was a left-handed killer.
Right.
Margaret and her husband had been, when she was alive, had been pretty wealthy, living off of income off the dry goods store they owned
Ah,
and boarding houses they owned.
now you covered it.
But her husband died in 1932 and the income went away, so to support herself and her daughter, she turned to sex work.
Mm.
This was not the first time she relied on sex work, but she had to go back to it after her husband passed. So she was working in sex work before she met her husband. Met her husband,
Didn't have to worry about doing that anymore. Her husband passes.
and she had
It's
to
like,
go back
well,
to
go
it.
back to what I know.
Yeah. Um The media reported the three West End murders had been discovered within 1 square mile of each other, and since the women had been strangled, the possibility that all three victims were victims of the same person.
Well, if
They
he's
were, yeah,
left-handed killer, I
yeah,
mean,
and this is stuff like the media didn't know, but the media knew that all three victims had been strangled. And remind you, it only got a small blurb. So they said three victims found within a 1 square mile of each other within 3 days, all of them strangled.
well, you don't
Could
want
be
to.
the possibility of the same person, and that's pretty much all they
Well,
said.
you don't want to go into detail like we are. Like you don't want
Well,
to do that much
and
detail in it, though.
also, but at the same time, again, this coverage, they were sex workers and the war was more important. So that's why they would only do a blurb on it.
Mm.
And it was, and I hate to say it, it was because they really didn't care about them.
Hmm.
So, so, blah, 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 blah. There were things that were not released to the media that would have actually strengthened that idea. So they did not release the left handed fingerprints to the media. They didn't release that they had all been brutally tortured. They
Yeah.
just revealed that they had been strangled. But after a couple of hours, after finding Margaret Lowe, there was actually a new body discovered. So Dr. Spilsbury, Sir Bernard Spilsbury,
Spillberry.
who I mentioned in the first case,
Yeah.
turns out he was actually called the real life Sherlock Holmes at points. because he would get so involved in cases.
Nice.
That he was really empathetic, and when he was working on those murders, he was like down with those murders. He's like, I gotta find out who did this.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually doing the autopsies on all this victim. So he had actually determined back to the second victim they had found that Oatley was alive when most of the wounds occurred.
Mm-hmm.
When he was investigating, he found 12 puncture wounds
Oof.
around and in the genital area,
Mm-hmm.
and they were done by the tin can opener.
Right.
Um, on February 12th, a woman named Mary Hayward, who went by the name Greta, went to Northwest London to meet a date. And because she arrived early, she went window shopping in the area, and she went to a cafe where a young man approached her and said,
Oh my
"Excuse,
God.
fancy cake shop?"
Angela. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Um, so she was waiting for her date when a young airman approached her. Remember?
Yeah.
Remember two of the victims.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Airman.
Yeah. And he goes, "Excuse me, are you waiting for anyone?" And Haywood said, "Yes, I am, but he's late." And this airman convinced her to get a drink with him, and she agreed because he was really handsome and he was
And her
charming.
date was late, so haha.
Yeah. He tried to get her to go with her to another restaurant or pub with him, and they would be back in time for her to meet her date. And she was like, "Nah, I'm good." And he protested. He was really persistent, and finally he wore her down. She said he was handsome and how he had a seductive quality about him.
I went to Spilsbury for the cake. Haha.
He was confident and he was also kind of cocky, so he kind of had that like,
You will come with me type
yeah,
attitude.
you want to go on a date with me, blah blah blah. So they went to another restaurant called Trocadero. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he asked her questions about her life and where she lived, and he actually seemed interested in her. Like he was asking a bunch of questions about her.
Yeah.
And then the conversation went south really quick because he asked her if she was a naughty girl and
Sorry.
would she take him somewhere.
Wow. What a
she then realized he thought
douchebag.
she then realized he thought she was a sex worker, and she was like, "No." She's like, I don't do that, and don't, yeah, that's not who I am.
Wow.
I don't do that." And
Wow.
he was like, "You're still beautiful, and I would still like to try." And she said, "I don't do it for money. I ain't sleeping with you. I ain't doing
I am
that."
taken.
She was like, "This isn't happening. I was waiting for a date, but because he was late and you were handsome, I decided to go out with you." And he kept persisting, even pulling out his wallet and showing her a large amount of cash. He kept telling her, "I'm not broke. I could afford a lot."
Okay.
And she was like, "No, I'm out." And she went to leave the restaurant. She was like, "I've told you no so many times. I'm not sleeping with you. No."
No
Because
means
because
no.
even when she said, "I'm not a sex worker," he was like, "You're still beautiful.
You're still pretty.
We could try."
You could tap that.
Um, and she was like, "No, I'm out." And she went to go leave the restaurant. Never mind you, she never got his name. Granted, he never got her name either. They didn't ask each other names.
Oh, but you'll ask about personal life and what you do and where you
So I'm
live.
gonna warn you, ladies, if you go out with strangers, please get their name.
Get their name and give them a false name,
He then followed her out of the
like Gertrude
restaurant.
or something. Yeah.
So I'm also going to give you a thing. The gas masks, all soldiers used to have gas masks. They were
Right.
issued gas masks.
Mm-hmm.
And so he actually had his bag with his gas mask on his, like, he had just come from training, and it was common if they had just come from training, if they
They
would just
wore
leave
it.
it. Yeah. Um so to her, the mask proves he was a serviceman.
That's right. No
No is
is
a
a
full
full
sentence.
sentence.
So another reason she trusted him was because he had that bag with him,
Mm.
marking that he was a serviceman. So she was like, "You're a soldier. You're not going to do anything. Soldiers are supposed to keep you safe."
I
Um.
was like, have you met this soldier?
So At that point, it was dark and it was quiet outside, so she actually pulled like her flashlight out and used that to walk. And he ran up on her, pulled it away, and said, "No, you shouldn't use it in this area." And she was like, "No, you're right," because it was a shady area. It was like a kind of abandoned area. She's like, "Yeah, you're right. I don't want to attract any attention to myself." So he took the flashlight from her and then he put it back in her purse. So that kind of was like a, "Oh, he's just keeping an eye out for me. He's just looking out for me."
Hmm.
And he tried to shoot a shot again by saying, "You must let me kiss you goodnight." Then he asked if she knew of any air raid shelters nearby where they could make out.
He's trying to be a real Casanova there.
She said, "No, I don't know of any, and also, I'm not interested. I'm not going anywhere with you." And with that, he grabbed her, pulled her into an alley, pushed her up against the door in a darker area, and kissed her. She said that she didn't stop him because, whatever, it was just a kiss. And she may not have wanted it, but it's just is what it is.
Again, no means no.
This is the 1940s.
Not all soldiers.
But then she said he got handsy, and that's when she was like, "Stop! I don't want to do this. I'm not interested to you." She told him to stop, and he refused to stop. He said that he tried to pull her clothes up, and she tried to stop him, but he was really strong. And she said that after a little bit, he got a hold of her neck and started squeezing, and then after a little while, she lost consciousness.
Mm.
Um, She told people that while he was choking, he kept muttering to himself, "You won't, you won't, you won't, you won't, you won't," over and over and over again to himself.
Psych eval room 105.
Like,
Wow.
and to me, maybe the "you won't" is you won't kill her. You don't have
Oh, so it's like
like a
his inner scared self is saying that you won't do it,
yeah. He's like trying to egg himself on. That's the
but
only thing I can think of is you won't kill her. You won't kill her. You won't. Like that's the only thing I can think of.
because if you ever, and I'm gonna bring this up because if you ever watch Criminal Minds, there's an episode that James Van Der Beek played in it, I believe, and he had a double personality. That
Oh no, this dude
one
was
was
coming.
like his, one was like the sound voice of his father or whatever, but his father
Hmm.
wasn't even alive.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you can't do it, boy." Da, da, da. And then he would resort back to himself, saying, "It's not right. It's not. You should not do that."
No, he didn't have that. There was no evidence of that at all when they caught him.
Oh,
There was no evidence of that. So,
of
and
a
we
double
still don't
personality.
know. Yeah, we still don't know to this day why he muttered to himself, "You won't," because we don't know if that because that didn't happen with the other victim,
But it happened with her.
and maybe
At
it was
least that they know of,
yeah,
because I mean, if he killed the other ones, they can't speak and say that he was doing that. She's the only one.
exactly, exactly. Well, and then the other one that he got on top of, and maybe he didn't say that because he was on top of her and his knees were in her chest, in her abdomen. So
Yeah.
maybe he was like, "I have the upper hand." Meanwhile, this one's up
This one right
against the
now,
wall.
yeah. You won't okay. Yeah.
Um, so she was now unconscious. And a night porter who was 18 years old, this young boy,
Oh no.
was making rounds and he heard weird noises coming from the alley.
Yeah.
And when he shone his flashlight, he actually saw a light flickering in and out. But when he scanned his light, he only saw a pair of women's legs sticking out of the doorway. He then said, "I'm here. What's going on? I'm here. I see you." And this scared the shit out of the guy, who had been strangling Mary, and he ran the opposite direction. And the porter and a few citizens came to Mary's aid and started to help her.
Oh, nice.
She could only moan and she was not able to speak. They discovered her clothes were ripped, buttons were no longer there, and it was brutal. And they deemed it a pretty gruesome, aggressive attack.
Oh wow.
Now, a few hours after this, there was a report to another police officer,
Mhm.
Catherine Mulcahy, the one who we got on top of and she kicked off
Mhm.
and she ran to the neighbors. She called the police a little bit after this.
Mm.
Um, Later that night,
Mhm.
another woman would be found murdered, and that was 24-year-old, 25-year-old Doris Jewess, who
Okay.
recently moved to London and went into sex work just until she could find a job and a husband, whichever came first. But then Doris actually met her husband, Henry, a wealthy French hotel owner who was a little bit older than her, and they got married after a couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently, the marriage was sweet and was one that was like they were truly in love. And he also knew about her history and he still loved her. Many people thought that he was actually one of her clients that came and visited her. And then eventually he was like, I love you. Let me take you away from this. Very pretty woman
Yeah.
esque. Um, and he would, but Doris being young and her husband being much older, she would get bored while she was married.
Okay.
So, and he would have to stay at some of his hotels.
Yeah.
So she would go back into sex work if she needed extra money or when he was gone for long periods of time, when she was lonely, kind of like how Oatley did with
Yeah.
her husband. But they said that she would always have dinner prepared, a soup or something for when he came home.
Oh.
So he would always come home to dinner and have like soup or something and it would always be prepared and the house was always clean and everything was like taken care of.
Yeah. I have one in there that I got for her and I.
Um
Well, I
so
bought one that has truffle ranch dressing, so I'm
yeah.
gonna try that.
So she would send off her husband on a train pretty regularly and then go solicit. And on the 12th, shortly after both unsuccessful attacks, so both attacks happened unsuccessfully on the 12th.
Mm.
So Doris had just seen Henry off and went to solicit. And there were people who had seen her and said they had conversations with her and she was fine. But it
Jeez.
wasn't until the next day when Henry came back home, as he always did, but he knew something was immediately wrong when he saw the dishes from the night before still on the
Mm.
table and she didn't respond.
Uh-oh.
He said that she would never leave those dishes on the table, that was not a chore that she would procrastinate. And
Yeah.
he was really concerned because their bedroom door was locked. He called a housekeeper to open the door, but she couldn't, so they called the police.
Mm.
Now, Constable Kane, so the first victim was found on the 9th,
Right.
second victim was found on the 10th.
Yep.
There was no victim found on the 11th, but they thought it was low,
Mm-hmm.
was from the 11th. Then you have the first unsuccessful attack on the 12th, the second unsuccessful attack on the 12th, and then this victim, which is found on the 13th.
Okay.
So I just wanted to,
Update.
she is the last one.
Okay.
So PC Payne said that now Constable Payne and other officers forced their way into the bedroom and they found Doris. They said that they thought she was asleep because she had a sheet covering all of her, a sheet and a blanket that was covering all of her.
Mm.
PC Payne said he pulled the blanket down slightly and saw the head of a woman. And when he pulled the blanket back even more, he realized it was Doris and that she was dead.
Oh.
She had been wearing only her night dress, and a tight stocking was tied underneath her chin. Payne wrote that a circular cut was under the left breast, and that the private parts seemed to be slashed.
Oof.
In fact, her private parts had been slashed and stabbed while she was alive.
Wow.
The sheets were covered in blood. There was also a gash they noticed that was on her right cheek. Uh, Noticed a gash that was on her right cheek. There was a 4-inch gash under her right breast and a large 6-inch gash that was below her navel to right above her private parts. And there was another 6-inch gash on the other side of her groin and another deep gash on her thigh.
Good lord.
All had bled to varying degrees, so she was in various states of dying when these occurred.
So he pretty much, because you think about it, main arteries are in certain parts of your body.
Yeah, he was just cutting her up.
Wow.
The
Come on,
wounds
Bubby.
also indicated, again, a left handed killer.
Hi, sweetie.
The police found a razor, a nail file, and a pair of manicure scissors.
Oh, jeez.
Um, Fred Sherrill said that the news panic had not been known since 1888 when Jack the Ripper was abroad on the East End, and had London known such a deep terror.
Mm.
The killer was doing a lot of damage, but not leaving a lot of evidence. but because two women survived, both of which had been close to him, they were able to give forms of great ID. So this guy was like, not since 1888 have we started to have this much panic. Not since Jack the Ripper.
Right.
But two women survived. And because they had been face to face with him, they were able
They can
give good things.
detail.
In fact, Hayward described the killer as such. He's between 25 and 26. He was actually 28. He's about 5'8" tall, fresh complexion, chestnut or medium brown wavy hair in the front and frizzy at the crown, brown eyes, and a small mouth and thin lips.
He was full of crap and pussy.
And he was dressed in an electric blue overcoat with thin gray lines and a square check with a gray belt trousers and brown shoes. So she described this man like this. She's like, I got all of this information. Here you go.
Wow.
Now, remember how I mentioned that he had that government issue gas mask and bag with him?
Mhm.
Well, when he got scared off by that night officer,
He dropped it.
he dropped it. And inside of it was a service number 525-8987. So, a simple call to the records department, they were able to identify who it belonged to. 28-year-old Gordon Frederick Cummins.
Wow.
To the press, the murders were ringing like Jack the Ripper. But unlike Jack, he was able to do more damage in 6 days than Jack was able to do in a couple of months. Because Jack spaced his kills out.
Yeah.
This dude was just kill, 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 kill.
Wow.
The police believed it was the same man who did all of it. Now, Scotland Yard brought him in only for the Hayward attack
Yeah.
because he left the gas mask there. So they couldn't arrest him. They suspected he did all of them, but they couldn't give any evidence. So they were only able to charge him for the Hayward attack. He told police he met her at a cafe and he had been with another service member earlier and he was really drunk. So his memory was really hazy.
Sure it was.
He even said that if I did do what you're saying I did, I am so sorry. I'll pay her to apologize.
Damn, pay me to apologize for something. Exactly.
Exactly.
Just,
Damn.
just as all damn.
He was
What?
yeah, which to me is funny because how many times did he offer to pay her? And now he's like, I'll give her money. I'll pay her.
No, she wanted nothing to do with you, you sick fuck.
So he was booked on
God.
charges of grievance and bodily harm. Both women he attacked positively ID'd him.
Sucks to be him.
He said that he had an alibi for the murders, though.
Okay.
The logbook said he was in his room when the murders were committed. But when his fellow soldiers were pushed, they threw him under the bus a little bit.
I was gonna say, how far do they backdate it? Come on.
There was a habit to log in and out for other soldiers, especially when they didn't have permission to leave.
So he talked to his fellow buddies
Hi, Jamie.
to turn it. What's up, Jamie? So he got people to sign in and
So
out
he
for
got
him.
people to sign in for him.
Stupid.
So the alibi was not good anymore because another soldier could have logged in for him. Detective Tom Shepard searched Cummins' rooms to see if they could get any evidence. You know what they found?
A lot.
A fountain pen in his pocket that was inscribed in gold DJ for Doris Genoway.
Oops, you forgot that one piece of info.
They also found shirts and towels that were covered in red stuff that looked like blood.
Well, it's not ketchup. God.
Cummins denied all of this, saying he didn't know how the pen got there. The morning on February 17th, he went in front of a judge where he was officially charged for the murders of all three women.
Good.
Evelyn Oatley, Margaret Lowe, and Doris. The logs show he was in bed for the night of Evelyn Hamilton's murder, and the prosecutors didn't think they had enough to charge him on her case because of this, right?
Okay.
People who knew Gordon were shocked because they couldn't believe it. Because he worked his way up the military to airman. He was a lowly maintenance guy, and then he became an airman. He was a good man.
Okay.
Hmm.
You want to call it? Okay.
They were baffled at the sexual assault because he was so handsome. They could not believe a man so handsome as him could commit such a crime.
AKA Ted Bundy.
Like,
Come on
to
now.
me, that is the most baffling thing. Because he's so handsome, no women could say no to him.
That one tried. Y'all catch that? She kept
She
saying she
tried.
tried. She kept
Ah.
saying no. If
Um,
I was her, I would have ran back, picked up his money, and then took off.
he was also
Like
married
you
to a
gave it to
beautiful
me.
woman. He was married to a beautiful woman.
What did she think?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Because he was so handsome, they couldn't believe it. And he was also known to brag about his sexual conquests outside of marriage.
Oh my god.
He
Wow.
seemed to be addicted to sex. That's honestly what people like thought because of how much he bragged about how much sex he was having. Which, if you're bragging about it that much,
You got a problem.
I don't think you're good. So he would have dinner with his wife, and then would be like, "I gotta leave early. I gotta go back to barracks." But instead, he would find a woman to sleep with. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, he was that kind of a person.
Jeez.
Fun fact, he actually got really close with a lieutenant's wife, and there were rumors that they were having an affair.
Would not be surprised.
There were also numerous sexual assault allegations in his vicinity, but none of them were ever pinned on him.
Mm,
So there was always like rumors around him,
yeah.
but
None could
nobody
be validated.
none could be validated or like nobody believed the victims. Because again,
He's too
he's
handsome.
too handsome.
He wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's possible he did do this before, but no one ever caught him. But
Wow.
he built up to this.
Can we get a psych eval for room 106 for the ladies, please? I
Yeah.
think he's too handsome. He wouldn't do this. What is
So,
wrong?
he was also known to be a liar and a big exaggerator.
What? Surprise!
He made everyone believe he was of high class breeding, but in reality, he came from an average upbringing. He tried to act like an aristocrat. Like his dad was a civil servant and his mom was a stay at home mom.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he tried to overcompensate for what he was not.
Yeah. His they said that his family was pretty normal, that there was no one with a criminal background or a violent background in his
Guess
history.
what, mom and dad? Now there's one with background.
So no one said there were any signs of him being violent or cruel. His mom said he was a normal kid, and he even said I had a normal childhood. He always would have money with him though, and he waved it around. He had actually been nicknamed the Count or the Duke by other soldiers.
Wow.
In school, he was pretty smart, but he focused more on socializing more than anything else.
Okay.
It was like he realized people had more power than education.
Wow.
And that was his whole life. Socialization was more important than anything. He would say he was an aristocrat, and he even changed his accent to sound more posh.
Okay. Dude, stop trying. He's,
Cummins impressed everyone. He wore his uniform most of the time, and he had a charming smile.
again, he's handsome and he's wearing a uniform.
When each charge was brought in front of the court, so they bring him into court.
Mm.
They're charging him on February 17th for the 3 of the 4 murders
Hmm.
and the 2 assaults. Um, when they would list those charges, Vincent Evans would go into details about the crimes that occurred.
Oh,
He would actually give details.
yeah.
And when they went to the murders, they talked about the brutality and said the fingers prints left at the scene matched his fingerprints. Because they had arrested him, they were able to get his fingerprints and
Right.
match them.
Wow.
Further evidence was things that belonged to the victims were found in Cummins' possessions. Like Evelyn Hamilton's cigarette case had been found in his possession. So they finally were able to charge him for all 4 murders because they found that cigarette case.
Because it's kind of like something like, what is it? Like trinkets. He kept trinkets.
Yeah, he
It's like,
kept trophies.
yeah, trophies. That's what it is.
As he sat in jail, evidence piled up. They found the pen belonging to Doris, another cigarette case belonging to Margaret Lowe, shirts that were bloodstained, and the towels that they that were also bloodstained. They traced the bills that he threw at that girl that escaped to him from his payout from the military.
Oh, wow.
Henry also identified a watch that Cummins had in his respirator case that belonged to his wife,
Oh, wow.
belonged to Doris. And the thing is, the reason he was able to identify it because the watch was broken. But his wife loved that watch so much
Yes, she kept it.
that she kept it, and she was like, "This is my watch. I know it's broken. I love it." And so when they were asking the different people, like the different family members, "Do you know what this is?" He was like,
That's my wife's
"That's my
watch.
wife's watch."
Oh, wow.
And he loved his wife. Like this killed him
Oh, I
so
bet.
much. This
I
was
bet.
like him and Barbara were the two family members that were most affected by this
Wow.
because Hamilton didn't really have a family.
Yeah.
And Oatley, also her
Yeah.
husband, kind of talked about it, but he was out of town.
He didn't know everything that was going on that
Yeah.
happened.
Um the investigators really wanted to help Margaret. Even though she was a sex worker because they were doing it for her school-age daughter. So
Yeah.
they were like really trying to make sure they got enough evidence to try him for murder for her and for Henry, like I was just saying.
Yeah.
And finally, they also found a hair comb from Doris was missing teeth. And Henry, again, like the watch said, that's
That's mine.
hers because she liked it. He even said, "Oh, that one's missing teeth. I'm going to buy you a new one." And she goes, "No,
I like this
I like
one.
this one."
Oh.
Which is like, you could tell, like, Doris seemed to be a person that was like one of those, "I'm going to keep things until I can no longer use them."
That's like me. Don't need to get rid of that yet. Not until it has a rip in it, like my favorite pajama bottoms.
Exactly. So they match fingerprints and even a footprint scene that they found at one of the crime scenes.
Yeah.
They were able to give all of this evidence. Like they had a pile of evidence now saying Cummins had did this. This was all found in Cummins' room.
Yeah.
It's him. So after this investigating, even though they had found Evelyn Hamilton's cigarette case in his personal belongings, there was still not enough to prosecute.
Mm.
They found mortar dust in his respirator. That dust was,
Mortar.
yeah,
Mortar. Okay.
mortar, was also found at Evelyn Hamilton's crime scene.
Oh, snap.
So they were positively able to identify him as being there and as being the killer. So
Wow.
finally, they got him for all four.
Nice.
His alibi for that night they believed was fabricated and he just left through a fire escape.
Mm.
Because sometimes they would do that.
Yeah.
When confronted with all the evidence and everything, he just said, "That is ridiculous."
What? What is so ridiculous about it, sir? You did all these murders. How is that
His
ridiculous?
response to being
Stupid.
charged with murder was, "That is ridiculous."
I could see him just going like this. That is ridiculous. Why do I picture his hands are on his hips? Ay,
Like a
no.
petulant child.
Yes. And stomping the foot. You gotta stomp that foot too.
Oh no, my personal favorite is just the fact that they found bloody shirts. And he's like, "Me? Kill somebody? Never."
What are you on, people?
Oh, let's scroll up.
It did. Oh, hi, Willow. What's
Okay,
up, Mama?
so, that is ridiculous. His wife was also shocked because she said nothing would stop him from becoming a pilot. And he wouldn't do this because that would stop him from becoming a pilot.
Well, honey, it stopped him from becoming a pilot.
And that their
And you didn't
marriage
know it.
was perfect.
You did not know your husband.
He would only visit her for a couple of hours and then lie to her and then be like,
I gotta go because I have a hot date.
So Cummins went in April to Bailey's courthouse, Old Bailey's courthouse, which is a famous courthouse in
Yeah.
England. A couple of weeks later, though, a mistrial was declared after the jury was given access to the wrong victim's crime scene.
Oh
So they had to
no.
declare a mistrial.
Cheese and crackers.
The judge said a little should be said about what happened so it doesn't taint future duties. Basically, he was telling the news and the jury of the time, did you dare spread a word about this?
Yeah.
We are not going to talk about this. You could talk about it after we have another trial.
Oh wow.
And you know what? The news didn't report on it that much.
Again, they didn't really care about the fact that this guy just killed
Yeah.
4 women.
So the full truth would be released later after another case. So they finally released all that information later. But a new jury was sworn in. On April 27th, the new jury was sworn in, and Cummins took the stand. And he said that on February 9th, he went out for dinner and he consumed a lot of drinks, and he didn't recall anything after that, after 10 p.m. And he said that he had never been to Evelyn Oatley's apartment and had nothing to do with her murder or the other three victims. Cummins' defense was so weak and the evidence was so strong that on April 29th, the jury deliberated for a little more than 30 minutes before coming out and saying, "You're guilty."
I mean, come on.
30 minutes.
In front of a bakery names with his
Hands on
hands
his
on
hips.
hips.
Dillsbury.
Mm, That's wow. I
Yeah,
didn't do that. I don't know what you're
that's
talking
ridiculous.
about.
30 minutes later,
That's
you're guilty.
ridiculous.
It was also a 2 day
I would
trial.
never do that.
A 2 day trial, 30 minutes
You
deliberation.
know what? T-shirt idea.
What?
Stomping a foot
That's
saying, that's
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Um, so saying you're guilty of Everly Oatley's death,
hmm
and they gave him the death penalty for
Oh,
that death. They did not charge him for the other three murders because he was already going to hang.
I was going to say there would be no point because he's already going to die for it. Oh, they were hanging him.
Yeah, this is when they
I
did
was,
the death penalty the old way.
I was about to say, how did they do it? Firing range,
Yeah, they hung him.
lethal, hung him,
They hung him
guillotine.
like they should have. A month
Wow.
later, Cummins' defense attorney filed appeal on his sentence, and then the appeal failed.
But
Cummins maintained his innocence.
I
Said,
didn't
"I
do
didn't do
that.
it. That's
That's
ridiculous."
ridiculous.
And on June 25th, in 1942, Cummins was hanged at Wadsworth Prison. Um, so he was hanged, like they dropped him, and then right after they did that, air sirens went off warning that Germans were coming to bomb the city.
Oh, Jesus. Wow.
There was no explanation as to why he killed those women. He died after they hung him.
Well, of course.
He died. Germans bombed England a little bit more. And then we don't know why he did it. We don't know why he did it, what
We don't want
caused
to.
him to do it.
Wow.
He just killed a bunch of women. He
It's what
he
it.
killed 4 women, almost 6. It's the 40s. You right.
What in the world?
And so that's the Blackout Ripper.
Okay, I don't like him as much as I did the Bayou Strangler. Sorry.
I
No, I
mean
didn't like the Bayou Strangler. Let me rephrase that.
I mean the Bayou Strangler was able to he took accountability in just a little bit. Granted, his accountability was they were trying to attack me.
Uh,
Coward.
I'm
This guy,
sorry,
on the
but
other
if
hand, was like, me kill? Ridiculous.
oh wow, you get a choice.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Yeah. I think it's a new thing they did. They did it that you can also get firing range.
What?
Or the gas chamber too.
A guillotine?
Maybe you could choose the guillotine.
You don't hear much about that.
Well, that's because nobody really wants to do the guillotine.
I mean, get drunk enough, pass out, you won't know nothing.
That's fair.
Put your head in there, and then
But,
you don't have to worry about it.
but yeah, that's the Blackout Ripper.
Jeez.
When I said he was brutal, I meant he was brutal.
Well, it's
I'm never
how
gonna
you
look
were
at a
saying.
potato peeler again.
Yeah, I might have to get rid of ours.
I agree.
Um, what was it? Well, like you were saying with the not really comparing him to
The
uh
Bayou
the
Strangler.
Bayou Strangler, but like you said, you would think that if you're a serial killer of some kind, no matter what you do. Oh, some of them take credit for what they've done. They either display it or they brag about it
I think that's because
or bragged. I should say not brag about it, but bragged about it, depending on the era.
like after the 70s, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. After the 70s, right? I think even in the 60s, when serial killers were like became super popular media things, right?
uh-huh.
And Ted Bundy and all these serial killers went on the rise. Well, it didn't really go on the rise. We just published more about them.
Yeah,
We kind of gave them this like glory. And so they kind of got this like, I'm going to take accountability for my crimes. Because you even have serial killers who they took accountability for crimes they didn't commit.
yeah. I did that. I did that just so they can get the attention
Yeah,
and the
just so they could get
popularity.
that attention.
I don't
Meanwhile,
peel potatoes.
in the 40s though,
Yeah,
he was a liar that wanted to protect his self-image.
yeah, because he was handsome
He was handsome and he was an aristocrat and he even changed his accent
and
to
he had
become posh.
money.
Yeah, look at how much money he has. Let me throw it at you. That kind of backfired on him. I lo- I love the fact that him throwing the money at her backfired.
Yeah,
The fact they were able to trace the bills to his payday.
stupid. That's why. That's what the numbers are for
Yeah, so they can
on the
easily
money.
track bills. Um,
Dumbass.
but yeah, no, I found that baffling. But the fact that nobody really talks about the Blackout Ripper, because to most people, the Blackout Ripper is something that happened in the 40s. It was short lived,
Apparently.
it was only 6 days, but he killed 4 women, almost killed six.
Mm-hmm. Lord, Lord, what an idiot.
Imagine if he hadn't left the gas mask.
Oh, he'd probably still be going.
Yeah, he would be going until he eventually made another mistake. But because that one girl protested so much, and
Yeah.
that one 18-year-old was like,
Kudos to that
hello.
18-year-old.
Yeah, kudos to that 18-year-old who was like, hello,
I'm here.
I'm here. Is there something happening? Because also, I remember hearing somebody talk about this again. Like, there's little light, it's like the pitch black.
Yeah.
It's like the
How
dark.
in the heck can you even? How? I mean, if they have to have blackouts because they don't want the Germans to know where they are, and this is all going on, how they? I mean, well, then it doesn't help with the 18-year-old and his flashlight.
Mhm.
It's supposed to be blackout. It's like, how can you even see that?
Well,
Well,
because he heard
besides the fact he's flashing his light, but oh, and he heard
he
things.
heard
Yeah.
noises in the alley and he was like, "Hello?" And he saw a flashlight moving around. So maybe he was going to like we had seen previous things where he had done stuff with um
I wonder if she was the one with the flashlight. Like, hey,
well,
over
she was
here.
unconscious. So I
Oh,
wonder if it was he had taken that flashlight out of her purse and he was going to use it for nefarious reasons. He turned on the flashlight and the dude's like, "Hello?"
Kelly, there's a light coming from the doorway.
He
Wow,
saw a woman's legs and he's like, "I'm here to help you." And the guy just took off running in the opposite direction
wow.
and left his gas
I
mask.
mean, it's a good thing he left the gas mask because
Hmm.
if not, he'd still be.
And just that his fact that his wife was like, "Our marriage was perfect." Sweetheart, you would only see him for a couple of hours before he would go,
I gotta leave. I
I
gotta go
gotta
back
go
to
back to the
barracks
barracks. And then he would sleep with another woman.
and then brutally attack, murder, or whatever.
Exactly. Or,
So,
and we also don't know what triggered him to start killing. Envisioned a
oh,
person.
yeah.
Hello?
Hello,
Hello?
or Willow going down the stairs.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Yeah, no, because like it's pitch black. Like a lot of people say in England, when it's dark, it's like the dark that plays tricks on your eyes.
Oh, okay.
It's not like it's not that kind of like dark where you can actually kind of see. It's that dark where you're seeing things, shadows moving in the dark, even though
What was
there's
that?
exactly like that's how dark it is.
Wow.
So no wonder. And that's the saddest thing to me is that Evelyn was so scared of the dark. that
Does she have?
she was
I
like,
need a partner. I need a
she's like, I
companion.
need someone to sleep with me. That is just so sad.
Yeah,
And
it
the fact
is.
that she thought she was like, "Oh, it's an airman." Because
I'm
this is during the
safe.
yeah, this is an airman. I'll be safe. Nothing bad will happen to me.
No, you're wrong.
And then he used a tin can opener
That
12 times.
that is very sad. To one for her to feel that way, she didn't have to deal with him.
She didn't have to yeah, exactly. She didn't have to deal with him. She just could cook him a dinner.
Wow, that's so sad.
But yeah. So that's a Blackout Ripper. Like I said, you're not going to be able to look at. Also, the nail file is also another one that gets under my skin.
Literally.
But boom.
Wow. But here,
Wrong one.
we'll do a clap. No, because that's the drums. I don't have one that does the whole thing.
Da dum bum.
I don't have that one.
We have our own sound effects.
But we can have for them catching him
Yeah, for them catching him.
and being hung.
Good. Also, I love the fact that they had a mini Sherlock Holmes. Like they had the human embodiment of Sherlock Holmes just being like
Grenade.
involved in the case. He was like, I've got to solve this murder. I'm like, he was doing the autopsies. Can you imagine? Like, he did the autopsies for the 4 women. Can you imagine him just being like, I need to find out who did this? We found him. He left his gas mask.
I wanted to be the one to find him.
I wanted to
I
trap
was
him.
supposed to be the Sherlock
And then
Holmes.
that other dude, just the fact that he was like, you know what? I'm going to ID other people in the criminal database. He's like, it's not one of them. That's like forefront thinking.
Yeah, better than the.
That's better than most.
What was it? Was it the Bayou Strangler that they were like, oh no, we don't think it's him. It's
Oh,
better. It's
yeah,
better thinking.
he was
Better thinking than that one.
he wasn't on a convicted sexual predator thing. He was just on an accused one. So
Yeah,
we're not going to look at the accused. We're only going to look at the
ones that had
have
issues
that
that have.
had went to jail for it.
Yep.
Meanwhile, in like this, what was it, the early 90s, he's gonna get climbed out of the dude climbed out of his window and he's like, he's gonna kill me.
Oh yeah.
But because he didn't show up to trial, they were like, you're free to go. Sometimes the justice system.
And always remember, no means no.
No is a full sentence.
No is a full sentence. We're gonna put that on a shirt.
Yeah. Also, I cannot wait until we talk about the next episode.
What's the next one?
Albert Johnson, the Mad Trapper of Rat River.
Is that the one in Louisiana?
No,
Oh, fine.
this one's in Canada.
Oh, jeez. We're going way up north, eh?
And it is in 1931. So
Oh,
we also get Great Depression vibes.
all these ones that you're finding are like in the 30s.
That's because of the 30s crimes are so fun. I think when did Fred and Rose West kill? I think Fred and Rose West killed during the 70s, so you'll get something a lot sooner.
I had a customer assume I was pregnant. Because I
Damn.
went to walk across in front of the juice aisle and where the butter was. And I guess I had touched my stomach or rubbed it or something. And he
Mhm.
goes, he's like, women and children first.
Women and children first?
I'm like, what are you
What
accusing
is
me of?
this? The
Being a woman or a
Titanic?
child? I mean, I know I'm short, but dang.
Not that short.
Yeah, not that short.
Fred West was a killer who killed between 1967 and 1987.
Ah, 7. Wow.
Yeah, and he killed 12 people.
Oh, jeez.
He and his wife killed 12 people. His second wife. You don't want to know what happened to his first wife.
Not
Actually,
really.
you're going to find out what happened to his first wife.
Stupid customers. I know, right?
I know. Customers, damn.
Oh, well, I hope everybody had a good weekend, though, too.
Yeah.
We're in the month of June.
Pride Month.
Pride Month.
So we're also, I'm letting you know, after the Albert Johnson, the Mad Trapper of uh
Canada.
Rat River. We're
Oh,
gonna
Canada.
do the because we have Juneteenth falls on the 19th.
Uh-huh.
So we're gonna do a little bit about what Juneteenth is, and then we're gonna talk about the Tulsa massacre because the two are often put on the same day, kind of a memoriam of the Tulsa massacre, even though it didn't happen on June 19th. But it's kind of like a uh,
Well, that's true. You so okay. So yes, I did hear about you moving to your house, which good for you. I'm glad that's finally over and done. So
going to hell in 6 months.
I told him I was going to mention it because he brought it up. Now I'm going to. So he had this customer. He went to go over to Automotive, and I won't say the associate's name, but to cover one of the ladies over there for her
Mhm.
break or something like that or lunch.
Mhm.
And customer came up to him, and correct me if I'm wrong at any time, Thomas. And some things were exchanged, like just verbiage, not like angry or whatever.
Mhm.
They just were having a conversation, and the guy got upset with Thomas because he goes, "Well, where get?" He's trying to get his keys, trying to get his car, and he goes, "Where are my keys?" He goes, "Well, I got to go get that right now. Give me 1 second, and I'll grab that for you." Thomas goes, "Can I get the paper? Because you have to verify that you're
Yep.
giving them the right ones, right?"
Yeah.
And the guy's, "Well, that's my car. I know those are my keys." And Thomas is like, "I understand it, but I still have to verify this and give you the wrong keys." So the guy was a little perturbed. So then he goes to leave after Thomas gives him the keys, matches up the paper. He goes to leave and he can't open the door because he's pulling on it. Thomas is like, "Hold on a second," and I'll open the door. So the guy turns around and looks Thomas right in the face and goes, "I condemn you to hell in 6 months." So Thomas ain't going to lunch. He's going to hell.
Oh my
So
god.
he has been condemned to hell in 6 months. So he goes up to Amanda and he goes, "Hey Amanda, can I put in a notice right now?" And she's like, and he tells her what happened, and she goes, "No."
She's like, no, you cannot.
So now the joke is that he's been condemned to hell in 6 months.
We will see what happens in 6 months.
If Thomas goes missing, we'll know what happened.
Exactly.
Do you know remember what the guy looks like so we can get a description?
Yeah,
Actually,
worst comes to
it'd
worst.
be on camera.
Oh, that's true. They could just pull up the camera from 6 months ago.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, it's like a toaster oven outside. But yeah, he told me that. I was trying not to laugh, but that was too funny. Oh my goodness. And your favorite lady was in there today too.
Oh no, not her.
Yeah, she was asking somebody about socks. And I was like, "Do you not stay at home? Can you just stay at home?" um,
I I despise her.
yeah. I always run. When I hear her, I run. I go the opposite way
I wish I
because
could
I
run.
know she is going to sit here. I know she's going to sit
She'll
here and
keep you
ask
there
me.
for hours. I've had to literally be like, I gotta go open fitting rooms for other people because she will keep you there for ages.
hmm She's trying. "Well, can you get this box of like pads or whatever it was for me?" Because she couldn't pick it up because she's on a breathing thing, right? So I was like, "All right." I was like, "Where do you want this?" So I put it down. And all day today, I had so many questions. I wanted to look at one of the managers and be like, "You get one more person to ask me a damn question. I'm gonna say, look it up on your phone." That's why she
You know
comes
the
to
number one
Walmart
question
because
I
we
get?
have to talk to her. No, we technically don't have to, but it's good customer service.
Do you know the number one question I get, which I think is different from everybody else in the store?
What?
Where's the underwear?
Oh my lord. We had a lady like that when I worked in wireless. Ask Carlos about the blue eyes sometime. Okay. When I
I'll
say him, I
remember to
think
ask him.
he's on vacation right now, so
Yeah.
I'll have to ask him when he gets back. But oh my goodness. I mean, and she seems like a nice lady. And I kind of agreeing with Thomas that she's lonely, so she gets out of her house. But where would she have to come to Walmart?
Couldn't she go to like
Can she go to like
Target?
Target or something?
Yeah.
I just don't, Oh, and heads up, if people who do crafting and stuff, Hobby Lobby is putting out their fall stuff. So maybe one of these times, Abigail and I will have to go to on a Hobby Lobby haul and take you all with.
Yeah. I was like being able to say I don't work here. That must be nice.
Yeah, bragger.
That must be nice. But no, we're also so after we do the whole Tulsa massacre thing, we're also going to talk about Stonewall because it's Pride Month. So we're going to talk about the beginning of Pride.
And how they want to take the T out of the LGBTQ.
Yeah, there has been talk about that amongst some people,
Yeah.
which if you think that, that's real sad. The history, man, the history.
Well, you have an iPhone. Come on. If you think they're wiretapping that phone, then what makes you think they're not doing it to the others? If your mind is set that way, you would not want to.
Johnson, Riviera,
Oh, and Zazu. Ooh. Zazu. Wait, is that the? Isn't that the? Oh,
Stonewall.
Stonewall.
Yeah,
Okay.
Marsha P. Johnson. I love her. She my favorite.
The reason I'm saying Zazu is because I'm like thinking of something different. Okay, my bad.
I think you're think. Are you thinking of Zoot Suits?
No, I love zoot suits. Those are
Zoot
pretty
Suits
cool.
are amazing.
Those are
One of
awesome.
these days, I'm going to talk about the Zoot Suit riots,
Yes.
which, by the way, was insane and also totally unjustifiable.
Who was it? No, okay. So the thing that I'm thinking of, because I've seen since I've seen Zazu, I am literally thinking of the wrong thing. So it was the thing
Mm-hmm.
with Ghost Adventures where Zach and them went to Oklahoma City,
Mm.
and the guy that was there, he had the Ouija board, and um, Zu-
Zuzu.
no, it wasn't Zuzu.
Zozo.
Yeah,
Zozo.
that's what I'm getting confused. Sorry. We had to start denying her returns. She returned like 5 or more in my time there. Wow.
Damn. I wish the police. You know what? I think the police aren't as interested in me. But I told Justin just to beware, just to watch his search history, because I was in the same room as him when I looked up how long does it take to strangle someone.
And he's all playing games behind her.
Yeah,
That's too funny.
pretty.
I don't
I'm
think
pretty sure I have gotten put on an FBI watch list after doing this podcast.
we need to watch this one right here. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, you were correct, Zozo. I don't know why I was thinking about that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the Stonewall riot. We're gonna talk about the beginning of Pride. And those of you who don't know, I actually found out that November is um Veterans Appreciation Month.
Okay.
May is Military Appreciation Month,
Right.
Military Caregiver Month,
Okay.
and I think April is Military Children's Month.
Oh wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
So all those months are because I always hear, well, the gays get the whole month of June, but the military doesn't get a month. Yes, they do,
They get 3. Got it.
and they get a couple of extra days
Yeah, it's like, come on. Don't start pinpointing and poking at somebody else because you think that they're getting all the fun and
just because they have parades. Doesn't mean.
because don't they still have Black History Month,
Yeah, they still do Black History Month.
which is February, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Then you got Spooky Month,
Yeah,
which is
you have spooky season. I mean, what? We're in Summerween right now.
yeah, I know. Summer. Oh, I like that Summerween.
Yeah,
We can make shirts.
Summerween. It is the celebration of Halloween. If you go to Hot Topic right now, they got shorts
Hmm.
that have ghosts and butterflies wings. Yeah, I know. It's adorable.
That's hilarious.
Summerween.
What is it now? Bath and Body Works is actually sharing. You showed me.
They
They're showing
released
their
their
Halloween stuff.
yeah, Hispanic month is like the middle of October to like the middle of November. Like it's not a month. It's
It's a
half of two
partial
months.
month. So stupid. Come on now.
I think it starts like September 16th to October. Is it October 1st or October 16th?
Oh, Jared's birthday.
Yeah.
That's too. Yeah.
Mhm. It's real fun.
Starts on Independence Day.
Yeah. Why couldn't we get all of September though?
I don't know. That's y'all's problem. I'm just kidding.
That's true. Damn, we need to fight harder.
Hi. Yeah. Hi.
Back to school stuff, yeah, it's already coming in. Like,
Not Cinco de Mayo.
yeah, the actual Independence Day.
Yeah.
Cinco de Mayo is just
What are you
a
doing?
whitewashed version of our Independence Day. Our real Independence Day was September 16th.
Oh well. I don't want to hear about back to school crap because you know
Well,
why?
you know what? Back to school clothes are already coming in for apparel. I hate it.
Hey Thomas, I'll locate. That's all I'm
But
saying.
that is a good point, Angela. They do have all the colored pencils.
All the colored pencils and pencils.
They have the good colored pencils that come out.
So glad I don't have to work. I don't work in stationery because that was one thing I freaking hated every year. Was that putting the train up, putting everything in the stupid ass train, making sure it was all in the right freaking spot. Because you know what? Customers can't put shit back where it goes. Do you do that in your house? Can I come to your house and mess up your house and move things around? I think not.
Somebody's a little spicy when it comes to stationery and back to school.
I hate back to school. I don't even want to look at it. But because I'm the aisle locator, guess what I have to look at? Back to school crap.
You know what I hate? The day after Black Friday. Do you want to know how many go back boxes we got on the day after Black Friday?
A lot.
5 break packs worth.
Make me a list of 5 break packs. That's not bad. I mean, was it a lot of tiny stuff? I'm asking. That's why I stopped myself before I said something stupid.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. So that does suck if it's all tiny things. His battle of Pueblos. Nope, I hate aisles and the cool ass colored pen and fine tip markers. Make me a list. Laugh out loud. All of it. I hate doing it because we would try to stick to mod and they just wanted us to shove stuff out. Yeah, they do that now.
They
Thomas,
still
you'll
do
go
that.
broke. Laugh out loud.
No, they still do that. It is the most infuriating thing.
And then they're like, "Hey, Michelle, you should go over there and allocate that." No, I walk by it and look at it and walk right away.
It's not in the action alley. It's
It's
not
not.
my
Yeah,
problem.
it's not on an end cap or an action alley. Which, by the way, we learned something new today. I think I kind of told you. It's annoying because they can't find. No, real. I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I have to hear it from the OPD associates because they can't find it, and then that's where a whole lot of nail picking happens. Which today I learned about our whole system changed
No wonder our system's
for
been glitching out.
nail
You're the
picks.
cause.
It's my fault. It's Monday. Blame it on me. So, um, it's like in different sections now. You have to go to Ops portal, which I could still get to. I just can't get to that. And then you follow through and get to a certain spot, and then it's supposed to pull up for you, like the missing location report, and which one was it that we had to look? Oh, I mean, we looked at all of them today, but it showed how many people, like no joke, and it is mixed in with Spark drivers. So the online sales is Spark and OPD. And then I seen that Justin picked 4 things, and I'm like, "What do you pick?" I'm like, I always joke with my son because, like, why'd you pick that? It's right there. It wasn't there yesterday. Yeah, but it's there now. You know. And when we do, and what I mean by nail pick, people don't quite understand. If you don't work for Walmart and do it, the aisle locating or what we do, pretty much what happens is, let's say you go to go find this on the floor. This is in your list to OPD
pick.
pick it. To pick it, you go over there, it's not there. You click item not found, it goes to a nail pick. And then I report it. Well, now, and that would tell me that Abigail nail picked it because it would give me her sign on. I know you do. Stop it. AKA someone didn't look. And I agree with that
Meanwhile,
part too.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah. We go look for everything. And so let's say she nail picked it. So right
Got
now,
my feelings. I didn't know pick anything.
let's say that for this instance, it's not there. She couldn't find it. So she nail picks it. But then I go find it. And it's literally right there. And part of the issue is customers will pick it up. Could be one left, and they move it a few, you know, a few spots over,
Yeah.
and it's literally right there. So then she gets in trouble because she nail picked it and it was sitting there. Well,
Which
now it does not tell me. It does not tell me who nail picks it. My job now is I print off. They are to print off the missing um, location items.
mm-hmm.
They're to print that off for me, and I have to go around the store and find it. And
Ah.
that's even going onto the sales floor, like on the aisles too. I was like, that means I have to
Now you gotta do the
I have to
no
hand.
location.
Well, now I have to do one. Yeah, pretty much is what I'm doing. But it's
Yeah.
also, yeah.
You're gonna have a fun time in apparel.
You have a phone call. Okay, ma'am. Thank you for jumping on. Appreciate you a
You're gonna
lot.
have a fun time in apparel.
Well, a lot of it though is grocery. They say so. I'll tell you this much at the top. It tells you how many missing locations, which was 111 for our store, and that was for the 31st. The department 95, which is grocery. And then what was the other thing? And it shows the amount like
Mm,
of sales for that day. So on the 31st, we had over 11,000 in sales. There was 111 items that were not located, and then Department 95 was the worst.
yeah.
So it now tells you that. So now they can pinpoint
What problem?
what where the problem is, which I like that idea. But
Because everyone blames it on apparel. Because I know.
well, not just apparel.
We
They're also
we
playing. They're also blaming it all on OPD, saying it's OPD's fault that they're not
yeah.
looking.
But
Which today somebody didn't look.
when it comes to aisle locations, though, I do think that they blame
I think
apparel
that's why
for
a
the
lot of
lack
people
of
do oversized.
yeah, they blame people for apparel for the lack of aisle locations.
Uh-huh.
But we have gotten to the point that we just see an OPD associate and go, "You need help finding something," and
Yeah.
usually we just help them find it.
Which it makes a lot more sense because, like I've told them, and I've told everybody's like, okay, they move things constantly. They can't. They can aisle locate the racks,
Hmm.
but the end caps are constantly being moved. They can allocate one thing on there or like maybe five. I would say, if anything, you guys allocate 10 things on an end cap. That way, at least somewhere
Hmm.
it's there, whether or not I'm allowed to laugh out. Wendy told you were allowed to do oversized or to nail pick. Wendy needs to stop. She's the boss. But
No, I find it hilarious how I am rarely on, I think, on your nail pick report when I go pick for OPD.
you never have been on my number pick report.
Exactly. And the few times I have gone and picked, I have kicked every single one of OPD's butts.
Mm-hmm.
I get like 100 and what was my last one? 171 pick rate
100 and
doing 2 regular ambient pick walks.
I
No,
think
doing 2 chilled
no, it was
walks.
194 the first time, and then the second time is 177. Oversized. Oh, okay. But yeah, so I mean, it was getting blamed on OPD, and now it's like, no, don't blame them because they're obviously finding things, and
And
so
now
is
it's grocery needs to focus on their aisle locations.
yes, they do.
Don't blame it on apparel.
Yep, it does. So now they were at so our end cap accuracy was 94%, which
Nice.
yay yes, and then the actionality was 86. Boo, but we'll get there. I shouldn't say boo. We'll get there. I know we can do it.
Eventually.
Yeah, better start now.
Yeah. But
Because
yeah.
because even one of the other team leads for grocery
Yeah,
talked to
Rob.
you. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, Rob.
yeah, Rob, make a T-shirt. That would look good on this. Rob allocating. But who did I tell it to? And they started laughing because they loved it. Robert. I'm trying to Robert. He starts laughing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cuz Robert gets it.
Yep.
But no, the next week's episode, I will say, feels very much like a movie. There is no background on the man
If it's
behind.
like a movie, we should do. I have an idea
Huh.
for the video.
Hmm.
If it will let us do it, I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure it out and see if it will let me do it. Because normally, I'll show you. So like when you go to the little arrow right here,
Uh-huh.
it lets you do effects.
Okay, we can
We
see.
could do a movie effect. If it's like a movie, we gotta do a movie
I will
effect.
say it's like a movie in the fact that you never know what's gonna happen next.
We're doing a movie effect. We're doing it.
Because also I will give you this little tidbit. Albert Johnson is not actually Albert Johnson.
We have a dude that lies to us. I mean, everybody has lied to us so far.
Oh yeah, everybody has lied to us. I mean, this case was a perfect
What is it?
example.
You lied to me?
Everyone has lied to us in this series.
Liars.
A first case,
Yes, movie effect. Yep, want to do a movie
the
effect.
trunk murderess lied to us.
I mean,
Escaped prison how many times? No, not prison. The mental institution how many times in Arizona?
she was just stealthy.
Then sued her.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Um,
Let's sue people after we escape.
the trunk murderess. Then you have the Bayou Strangler. And then we have,
And just think, during spooky season, I'm probably going to use that movie effect a lot.
yeah, during spooky season, we
think
might
that'll be
doing
fun.
that a lot.
I think it'd be fun
Yeah.
because you'll like the picture that comes with it. Like I said, brains, creativeness.
But we are
For
doing a
this.
movie effect for the whole because it does. Like I said, this case did inspire actual movies, and it also inspired poems, songs,
What the frick?
plays. It is a huge part in Canadian history.
Cheese and crackers,
Everyone in
man.
Canada knows about this case
Why I would think so.
because of how wild of a case it is.
All right.
Let's just say there's freezing temperatures, there's dynamite, there's running from the police. There's
Oh yes, I showed him the picture for today.
oh yes,
That it has the knife
the
and
little
the
knife
movie
and the
thing.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And as I said, she's the brains behind the stories, and I'll do the creativity on the.
Yeah, because like I think today I'm gonna be writing the Tulsa massacre and the Stonewall one today after we get done
Yeah.
because the Fred and Rose case is a bad one. Even though I know it's bad to say that they only killed 12.
Only.
Yeah, only. Um, it's particularly brutal, and I'm gonna need to take a lot of breaks.
Okay.
And I'm gonna need a break after doing theirs.
And then what was the one after that? So Fred and Rose is going to be 2 weeks worth.
Yeah, it's gonna
2
be
Mondays.
2 weeks worth.
And then July 1st.
What did I? It's on my calendar.
Right here. We have Kidnapping of Barbara Jean.
Yeah, the Kidnapping of Barbara Jean, which is a fun one.
And then I think the 14th was supposed to be Peter Bryan, but we're doing Disney because that's the week of the anniversary for Disney.
Yes.
So the 7th,
The
Kidnapping of Barbara Jean. The 14th is going to be Disney. So I might bring out some little Disney things, but it's only for the park.
Also,
So
I might this if I got enough, I might buy us some fancy new podcast equipment, and we might get a nice little cool microphones. We might have to also go to the table over there and not be on our couch.
I think we're gonna be moving our spot to our dining room so that way we can have a little bit more space to kind of stretch stuff out and do things.
Yeah.
But so next, we all know
Next is
week
the Mad Trapper of Rat River.
Yep. Albert Johnson, or so he says.
Or so he says.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
And then we have Juneteenth and Stonewall.
Yep.
2 historical events during June, which are kind of important.
Mhm.
And then Fred and Rose West. And if I type up Fred and Rose West, and it's because I think the longest case we've done was 17 pages, the Bayou Strangler. If it is longer than 17 pages, it's gonna be a 2-parter.
So then I would do it to where maybe 10 pages each time.
If it's 20 pages, it might be 25.
And if it is, we'll just cut it in half to where it's.
Because, like I said, they had a 30-year killing spree.
Cheese and crackers.
Yeah, it was.
Cheese and crackers.
Cheese and crackers is just the least of it. They actually suspect a lot more people died by them.
Oh wow.
But they can only tie 12 to them. Officially.
Wow.
So yeah, Fred and Rose West.
So
the thing that gives me nightmares.
Right? Maybe I can try and figure out how to post on and just do a post on here and list each month what we're going to talk about. And if we happen to change it, we'll let you guys know the day before or the day
because we have it pretty much shaped
all the way
out
up to November.
I think November, yeah. Because I know I'm super excited. I can't wait till September 1st.
Oh, that's true. But will you be here at that time? I think you were
If
going on vacation.
if we go on vacation on September 1st, we'll just re-record, like pre-record the episode
Okay,
on
do it.
like Sunday or something like that.
When you get home.
Yeah, because September 1st is on my favorite.
And then
Edmund Kemper.
I think John and oh dang it, pre-film. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've already heard a few Disney haunting stories that I found on social media that I can write out and tell. But I'll look up do my research, and then
Hmm.
for next month it's the 70th anniversary for that. So on the
Hmm.
day that I do it for Disney on the 14th, it's only going to be about the park. It's not going to be about well, that won't come until December because it's his birth month and death month because he like
In
died
December,
10
right?
days after his birthday. Yeah. So that'll be December.
And in December, we're also doing Krampus. Wow, wow.
I know. I'm gonna have to find like a Krampus out. Not for me. I'm talking about for the picture.
We could try to stick the dog in a Krampus outfit.
Yeah, she will not go for that.
She'll be fine. I've dressed her up in outfits before.
Stop
She
that.
has her little. She has what? Her Christmas dress.
She put her. She's off. What?
The dog just
Christmas
stuck her
dress.
head up and stared at us.
What are you eating? Why? Why? No, come, you little fart. What do you eat
The
stuff
animals are
for?
having a blast.
Stupid. Eats crap off the floor, which is not smart, Willow. You just, whatever. All right. All right,
All right,
kids.
it is time for us to go.
Yes.
Sayonara.
Sayonara.
Hope you enjoyed the Blackout Ripper.
Adios.
And please,
Subscribe, share, and like. And go over to the podcast because this is on J&M's until we get 50 subscribers, which now we have 16.
yeah, please don't, brutally murder people.
Yes, let's not do that. We don't want it coming back to haunt her.
Yeah, it will haunt me. I've already started having the nightmares
Or
again that I
either one
used
of
to.
us.
Remember how I said before I took the break that I was getting nightmares? The nightmares have begun again.
Oh, great. So we're going to have a happy post and a happy video one of these times.
That's why I'm writing so far in advance. So
Because
I
when
can give
when we get
myself some nightmare.
when we hit our 20th episode, then we'll have our Q&A, next Q&A on the 21st episode.
Yeah.
All right, kids. Love you all. Thank you, Angela and Thomas, for being on here. Really appreciate you, and I appreciate
Bye.
everybody that watched. See you later. Bye. Maybe.